Hello everyone, I'm Darren again. Today's topic is following on from a previous video where I'd looked at how some people use accusations or the threat of accusations to control and dominate others. Now, I would just like to say from the outset that some accusations can have legal implications, and I'm not a legal expert, so I can't really talk about it from that perspective. Also, you don't always know what kind of person it is that's making the threats. So this is not about how you deal with them. These are just some ideas to help you manage yourself whenever you're faced with these tactics. And also, you might want to watch the previous video looking at the nature and the motivations behind weaponized accusations if you think it would be helpful. But just to recap, in many cases, whether the accusations are false, exaggerated, nonsensical, or twisted versions of reality, they are generally aimed at putting people on the defensive, to keep them apologizing or explaining themselves. And this manipulation tactic can happen in relationships, families, in workplaces, on social media. But ultimately, the weaponized accusations are aimed at getting others to back down and comply out of fear of the consequences of the accusation. So I'll begin by telling the story, and it's a true story. It happened to a friend of mine, and he has given me permission to share this. But a few years ago in the workplace, he was being bullied, and anytime he tried to stand up for himself, he was threatened that he would be taken to human resources and put through a grievance hearing. So he feared the process of going through a grievance hearing, of having to prove his innocence. And the more he backed down, the worse it got. And one day he realized that what this guy was doing was threatening him that, do what I say or I will lie about you. So the first thing to consider is that whenever people use accusations or the fear of accusations, they don't think they have to prove any guilt. They assume everyone will believe them and that the accused will have to prove their innocence. Now, sometimes that may be the case, but not always. Many times your friends and your family know you better than the accuser does. So try to maintain a sense of self and a sense of reality. And one way of doing this is not to internalize the accusation. Internalizing it can lead to self-doubt, which gives the accuser control over you. For instance, if you're constantly accused of cheating, well, remind yourself that someone walking into your field of vision doesn't mean you're having an affair. Saying no to an unreasonable demand doesn't make you selfish, and disagreeing doesn't mean you're full of hate. And if you're accused of always making mistakes, well, remember that's a generalization. You can acknowledge that, yeah, you don't know everything, but you are more than capable of learning. So focus on what you do get right. This can help expose the flaws in the accusation. It can help to speak to people who do know your worth. It can help keep things in perspective. Secondly, it can be difficult whenever you're faced with outrageous or exaggerated accusations, where emotionally charged labels are being used, but do try to avoid reacting. Instead, respond. Ask questions, state facts, give an account of yourself if you have to. But remember, if you react emotionally or become overly defensive, well, some manipulative people might twist that to fuel their narrative and make you appear guilty to others. So try to stay calm, ask for specifics, ask for details, give them their own work to do. This can help highlight the lack of truth in their false claims, expose the weakness of their accusations, and make it easier to refute them with facts. So try to remain level-headed. Next, stand firm in your boundaries. If someone is repeatedly accusing you of things and they're doing it without consequences, they're getting away with it, well, this can encourage them to continue because it's working for them. Now, depending on the person, depending on the situation, sometimes it can help to point out that you know what they're doing and that you will not engage unless they do so honestly. Now, they might react, they might overreact, act like they're the victims. So you can be polite yet clear in telling them you disagree with the accusations, but you're only interested in discussing whatever the issue is constructively. Lastly, if possible, try to get a neutral third party involved. It could be someone who can give a neutral perspective, intervene if needed, for example, a mediator. Or sometimes, maybe try to get someone who can give practical advice on how to deal with the accusations. So there are just a few ideas to help manage yourself whenever people threaten you with accusations. But a few last things to think about is, People who do use accusations to manipulate others, they tend to feel weak and insecure. They generally try to seek control over situations and people. So keeping a clear head and refusing to internalize false accusations are your best strategies for maintaining your boundaries and your self-respect in those situations. When it comes to social media, the block button can be useful so you don't have to listen to these people when they do pop up. And do try to remember, you are not responsible for the contents of someone else's head, nor do you owe anyone a response if they're just being mean and they just want to keep you on the defensive. Lastly, that friend of mine, well, he did stand up for himself, and yes, he did end up going through a grievance hearing, and yes, he said it was very stressful, but all he did was tell the truth. The other guy kept tripping himself up with lies, and in the end, everyone saw through him. I do hope you found something useful here. If you did, please consider subscribing, and until next time, thanks for watching.